often we forget that just like in everything else in life, in our practice of the Dhamma, we also need to have some form of strategy, a method, that works. If you're going to, excuse me, if you're going to take the bus to go somewhere, to the store, to school, to work, or home, or you're going to find the best route for you to drive to your destination, or wanting to pursue a degree in some field in education, some goal, or you want to climb up the, as they say, corporate ladder in business, becoming an entrepreneur, etc. You need to follow a step strategy. It is no different with the Dhamma. You're not going to get something for nothing. Just like no one's going to give you the salary simply because you exist, simply because you're thinking about it. Your boss is not going to believe you if you say, well, I did want to come and get the bus and get you. Or if you need to be at a certain destination, you look for the shortest route to take you there. And if that proves itself to take you longer, guess what? You switch. You go back to something that worked, or try to find a better route, a better solution to your problem. When it comes to our practice, Lord Buddha has thought about everything, every possible scenario that could go wrong. Imagine. He gave us every tool imaginable, every possible scenario that might occur when you're dealing with the mind, when you're dealing with your ways to get stuck, the challenges we face. Because there is this tendency that we have in thinking that my situation is different. This situation I'm in calls for a different set of strategies, which, I'm sorry, there's none in the Dhamma. There is no such case. There is never going to be a situation like that where at least one aspect of the teachings won't address you, that particular situation you're in. So please be mindful of that, no matter the challenging circumstances you might be undergoing. Because when you look and probe deeply, you will see the presence of the five hindrances, the pancha nivara. These are obstructions. These are hindrances. I like to use the word obstruction instead. Hindrance it's almost like, on the side. Obstruction is like a boulder in your path, not allowing you to proceed any further, imposing itself upon you. And that's what, for example, restlessness does. Worry or worrisome thoughts do, or skeptical doubts do. When you have all of a sudden this sense of uncertainty, you're surrounded by it, engulfed in it. Or when you have lust, sensual desire coming up. Have you ever seen it? Have you ever carefully observed how it feels when you have sensual lust? It comes in different ways. You do have six senses. It doesn't necessarily always have to be visual, but it's overwhelming, intoxicating. So what do? It is not a unique case that is happening only to you. It is something that not only does happen, but should happen. It must happen if we are going to really penetrate and go understanding the Dhamma properly. So this sutta that I've chosen for us is, we go back to the Samyutta Nikāya, the connected discourses. And it is a theme that usually we see connected to four main categories. I'm referring to āhāra or āhāra, nourishment. Sometimes it's translated as nutriment, something that sustains, feeds you. Feeds, for example, in this case, it will be not necessarily just the six senses, but it is feeding what I mentioned earlier, the nivarana, the five hindrances or obstructions. We don't think about that. We don't, they just show up as it. But no, they must be fed. If you have a guest who shows up, unwelcome guest, by the way, I think we've all met someone at least in our lives who comes and intrudes upon your space, your time, or actual place of, residence. If you ignore them, if you don't pay attention to them, if you don't feed that guest, what will happen? Well, that parasitic situation is not going to happen anymore. Eventually, it will die out, right? Because they will see that you're not a good, a good host for them to feed off of you. So similarly with the hindrances, an arahant is a perfect example of a very unwelcoming host to the hindrances. You can't be nice. You can't play nice. You can't be a nice guy to the hindrances. You give them an inch, this is the quintessential saying in English, they will take not only a mile, they will take over you, your entire life, and everything else that you touch. That's how bad the hindrances are. I know I've mentioned many times, including in the book and many, many talks, as well as other teachers have said this, but hindrances don't necessarily have to be our enemies. We don't have to treat them as our enemies. There's a difference. But they are our worst enemies. See, if you play wisely, see that they're coming, knowing full well what their intention or what intentions are, and you switch directions, you go somewhere else, you close the door, you take off that sign that says all are welcome or I'm open. No, you close it, just like in some favorite store you go to, and then at the wrong time, or what do they have? They have that sign that says, sorry, we missed you, closed. Put that sign up for the hindrances. Every time you notice them, how do you notice them though? How could you spot them coming from all over the hill? And that is what Lord Buddha discusses here in this beautiful, very rich sutta that I wanted to pull out from the Nikayas and finish translating this sutta. I was thinking of either this sutta or Pottapada Sutta, which is a long sutta that has been in the works for a few years now. I've been working on. So that is also finished. But and this also, I finished it this week. So I was like, I think this will be best for this time being. So anyhow, this is Sutta number 46.51, SN 4651, from the Samyutta Nikaya. It is the Āhāra Sutta, that which nourishes. That's how I translated it. It is from the Mahavagga Samyutta, the Magga Samyutta subsection, and from the Sākacha Vagga, the section on discussing the Dhamma. So that which nourishes. Let's just dive in. Once, while staying in Savatthi, the Blessed One addressed the bhikkhus and said, Bhikkhu, I will instruct you on what it is that nourishes and feeds the five hindrances, and that which starves them. In addition, bhikkhus, I will teach you on what it is that nourishes and feeds the seven factors of awakening, allowing each of them to develop into maturity, as well as caution you as to what depletes and inhibits their growth, starving them from ever reaching healthy maturity, and thus their fullest potential. Now listen carefully to what I shall say. Yes, Bhante, he was replied. The Blessed One then continued by first section. It's divided into four, by the way. You'll see. I'll read I divided them into sections to make it more intelligible and memorizable, where you can recall it easily. That which nourishes the hindering obstructions, nivara. And what, bhikkhus, is that which nourishes the arising of sensual desire that had not yet arisen, and leads to the increase and further growth of the already arisen sensual desire? Remember, the hindrances are five: sensual desire, kama chanda, vyapada, which is ill will or hatred, anger sometimes, or I also call it sense of loathing, pushing something away. Next comes drowsiness or sleepiness, sloth, torpor, procrastination. That comes in a bundle of two. And then the fourth one is the restlessness and worry, uddacha. And then fifth is the skeptical doubts, or vicikiccha, the sense of uncertainty. So here, Lord Buddha is starting from the first, obviously, kama chanda, sensual desire, lusting after it, being passionate about it. When, bhikkhus, one witnesses a sign that is reckoned as pleasurable or beautiful to experience, then, while allowing his mindfulness to drift away and be thus pulled into that sign, he frequently goes back to it and gives it his constant, unwise, radical attention. Now, this itself will instigate and keep fueling that sense desire into existence, nourishing and helping unarisen sensual desire to arise in his mind, while also increasing and further perpetuating the growth of any sensual desire that is already present. It's so airtight, it's so vacuum sealed, the instruction that Lord Buddha is giving. There's no loophole. There's no gap where you say, well, what about in this situation? No. You remove your attention from something, then you've let yourself be open to anything that comes in. When you leave the doors of your house, your room, your apartment, where you live, the windows wide open, constantly, things will happen. At least some insects are going to come in and make your home their home. Bigger animals will show up. Rodents will come in, and people will come in. Thieves will come in. Why? Because you were neglectful with your mindfulness. But here, Lord Buddha is coming back to that very, very crucial element that basically is the reason why we have the Dhamma in the first place. Lord Buddha discovered yoniso manasikara, wise radical attention. Without that, Lord Buddha would never have become the Lord Buddha that we know we have. The Dhamma would never have been revealed, discovered by him. Why? Because the attention, wise attention, wasn't there. It was misplaced, wrongly placed. In fact, it is yoniso manasikara. Now, so long as we do not apply yoniso manasikara, what we're essentially doing is practicing ayoniso manasikara. It's opposite. It's as simple as that. If you don't practice the Dhamma, you are practicing adhamma. Plain and simple. If you don't practice sati, you are practicing asati. I don't care how beautiful, lovely, colorized images you have of what it is that you think you're doing, being Dhamma, when in fact, if it's missing sati, if it's missing sila, if it's missing panya, you're practicing adhamma. So here Lord Buddha is saying, when pleasurable things happen, experiences that are pulling you in, this is important, pulling you in versus what we're going to see in a minute with the second hindrance, which is pushing you away. Patigha is having a resistance to something, but here it's pulling you in, it's seductive. Maybe it's a flavor. Maybe it's a sight. Maybe it's a sound. The very fact that you are giving it attention, you are feeding it. It's necessary nourishment, āhāra. You are providing it with life. And what, bhikkhus, is that which nourishes the arising of ill will or the sense of loathing and hatred that had not yet arisen, and leads to the increase and further growth of the already arisen ill will or the sense of loathing and hatred? By the way, I want you to be aware of this formula. Lord Buddha always, and his disciples, whenever they're describing the appearance of something, they also, let's say, remember, this is samudaya. Lord Buddha is talking about the point of origination. What is the cause for its arising? That is samudaya. Remember the Four Noble Truths? What is the cause of dukkha? Samudaya. Second Noble Truth. There's a cause. So Lord Buddha is saying, what is the cause of hatred to be there? Don't come to me saying, well, it just showed up. No, that's not Dhamma. Oh, God gave me this, or some spirit landed it upon me, or put it in my head, or something. Oh, it's my genes, right? The medical model is, that's the disease model that they use in medicine nowadays, therapists and all that. No, I'm not the problem. It's just the disease over there. I have nothing to do with it. No, that's nonsense. So here, Lord Buddha is asking, what was the cause of the thing which had not even shown up yet? What was feeding it? What was going to be its nourishment? And the second aspect of that is what sustains once it has arisen, that thing. Once it's there, could it be that you might be doing something to make it stronger? This would be happening a lot with individuals dealing with insomnia. When something shows up and you say, no, I have to wake up at 5, and it's already 11 or 12, and now 1, and now 2. Oh, if I could just get those 3 hours in. Meanwhile, you're fighting with your thoughts. What is that? You're giving it attention. Pull away, turn your back to them, smile and say thanks, but no thanks. Enjoying the softness of the pillow, not engaging in a fight with your thoughts and worries, because that's only going to perpetuate the problem. That would be the second aspect of the arising and sustaining. So that is where many people get stuck. Even when you're having hindrances in your meditation. Oh, Bhante, why is there this anger? I hate this. I hate that I'm doing this. I hate that I have anger. I have hatred. So you hate the fact that you have hate. How is that going to help the situation? So you see, you're fighting with yourself. So here, let's go to what Lord Buddha is saying about the ill will. When bhikkhus one witnesses a sign that is reckoned as repulsive, you don't like it. Patikula is another word for it. Generating resistance in oneself towards the experience, the unpleasant experience. Then, while allowing his mindfulness to drift away and be thus pulled into that sign, he frequently goes back to it and gives it his constant, unwise, radical attention. If you give it attention, it becomes not just a sign. And the sign here, it doesn't necessarily have to be a sign. Anything that is getting or grabbing your attention. In Pali, the term is nimitta. So now this itself will instigate and keep fueling that ill will or sense of loathing and hatred into existence. It will bring it about. It will make it more and more, nourishing and helping the unarisen ill will or sense of loathing and hatred to arise in his mind, while also increasing and further perpetuating the growth of any ill will or sense of loathing and hatred that is already present. So if you notice, a common denominator here is, yes, the giving up your attention. Doing with the mind is another way of saying manasikara. What are you doing with your mind? Lord Buddha is asking. If you give attention to the ugly thing that has happened within you, outside of you, in the circumstances, things are not as you like them to be, your eyes are fixated on them. What is it that's happening then? You are giving it attention. You give something attention, it will grow. It will become more intense. Have you ever waited at a doctor's office? Or waited for a friend to show up and you're there and they're not? And you keep looking at your watch or your, the clock on the wall. Suddenly those seconds feel like an eternity each. What are you doing? Your attention is wrongly placed. You're practicing yoniso manasikara. And that's another thing with the hindrances. You let one in, the rest will follow. That's kind of buggers they are. You let one door open, there goes the neighborhood, as they say. And what bhikkhus is that which nourishes the arising of drowsiness and sloth or procrastination that had not yet arisen, and leads to the increase and further growth of the already arisen drowsiness and sloth or procrastination? When bhikkhus one experiences boredom, tiredness of the body or mind, sluggishness, irritability, becomes drowsy after a heavy meal, or feels lethargic, then, while allowing his mindfulness to drift away and be thus pulled into such states of being, he frequently goes back to them and gives them his constant, unwise, radical attention. Start thinking about your bed. You start thinking about how great the ground would feel right now instead of sitting on a chair. Yeah, but I'll maintain my mindfulness, Bhante. Just 10 minutes. Oh no, half an hour, okay? Half an hour. I just need to lie down and just. No, I'll meditate. I'll meditate instead of 1 hour. I'll meditate 2 tonight. Just let me skip this session. What is that I'm doing? I have made it a priority. When you place your attention on something, you have definitely made it a priority. Make no mistake about that. Lord Buddha had another name for that. He called it cetana, volitionally, intentionally acting upon something. Now, this itself will instigate and keep fueling those states of drowsiness and sloth or procrastination into existence, nourishing and helping the unarisen drowsiness and sloth or procrastination to arise in his mind, while also increasing and further perpetuating the growth of any drowsiness and sloth or procrastination that are already present. I sometimes joke around about some students that I've had in the past who would sit there and meditate. And when I was, let's say, doing interviews with them, they're very alert. Their eyes are open like this in their private interviews. But somehow, whenever we're supposed to sit as a group to meditate, the head starts drooping to the side or to the front. Meanwhile, for them, it's still daytime. So it's not like 3 a.m. or 2 a.m. or early in the morning, or they haven't had sleep. No, they've been sleeping very well. Thank you very much. So I would joke around afterwards and I would say, imagine, because they were on the chubbier side, imagine your fridge door and you have your favorite food there, ice cream or something. Would you droop? Would you slouch? Would you go into sleeping mode when you're about to eat that delicious meal? No. They're very alert. And interestingly enough, you can also bring up a person's loved one. Let's say they can imagine something terrible about to be happening to them. Let's say if there's a child, they're going to fall off a cliff, or not just a child, but they're going to touch a sharp or hot object, and they're going to burn themselves. And you're the only one there. Would you doze off? Or are you like fully on? That is the state you have to be in. So if you have a child in your life, or someone you care about a lot and protective of, but you're here, you're in the safety of your room, everything's fine, suddenly you're dozing off, you're getting, slothful, tired. You might have legitimate reason to be tired too, by the way, but you made a promise to yourself that you're going to sit for that session. Suddenly you notice drowsiness kicking in. That's the moment where you need to bring in the image of your loved one about to fall off a precipice, or touch a sharp object, or burn themselves. Can you really close your eyes at that moment? That's the intensity with which we need to work. That's why I said we need to have a strategy, and the Dhamma has all the strategies in the world for it to work, but we need to put the effort in maintaining that yoniso manasikara. Yoniso manasikara is not about the world outside, going and working and making a living, this and that, taking care of your loved ones. Yes, there is manasikara there, but as far as the Dhamma is concerned, you need to be mostly concerned about the well-being of your mind, quality of your heart, because you lose that, you lose every loved one you've ever had or have. Forget about your salary, forget about your future, because there's nothing more essential than that. And that's what the Dhamma addresses. But it all starts from where it is that you're giving the attention to, what it is that you're giving attention to. So I don't accept students who come and say, well, I'm so tired. Well, what's going to happen if you don't sleep for a day? Nothing. You will not die. I tried it. not just on retreats. I've tried it on my own. Couple of days, nothing. I'm still alive. During the day, yes, it's going to be hard to do some, let's say, real important work or something like you're dealing with detailed stuff. Okay, drop down, give yourself 5, 6 push-ups, and boom, you're up. You're up. But yes, you have to go and compensate for that later on. Find yourself. But what I'm saying is, don't believe everything your mind tells you, especially the hindrances, because oftentimes they take the mic from the hands of the mind. They're talking to you and you're thinking it's your heart speaking, it's your mind speaking. No, it's the hindrances. And you're like, sure, yeah, the pillow, yes. No. Nobody's ever become an arahant while sleeping. Try to digest that for a moment. Nobody's become an arahant. Nobody's attained freedom from samsara by taking the time out from the yoniso manasikara. That will never happen. And what bhikkhus is that which nourishes the arising of restlessness and remorse or worry that had not yet arisen, and leads to the increase and further growth of the already arisen restlessness and remorse or worry? When, bhikkhus, one experiences the heart being unsettled, lacking calm and tranquility, while allowing his mindfulness to drift away and be thus pulled into thoughts and worries that unsettled his sense of peace, then he frequently goes back to them and gives them his constant, unwise, radical attention. Now, this itself will instigate and keep fueling those states of restlessness and remorse or worry into existence, nourishing and helping the unarisen restlessness and remorse or worry to arise in his mind, while also increasing and further perpetuating the growth of any restlessness and remorse or worry that are already present. What you give attention to becomes your reality. Over the last 100 years or so, people have been talking about law of attraction a lot. Manifestation, that's a big seller these days, right? You need to have positive psychology. Think the positive. Think positively. Think this. You can think your reality into. Yeah, that's true. Lord Buddha's talking about the same thing, only 26 centuries earlier. But this is not just some book information, some book knowledge. If you're unhappy, if we are unhappy, then we are unhappy because of the attention. The attention. Where is our attention going? That's what essentially Lord Buddha is saying. Not just attention giving, but frequently. He uses that word frequently. How often? Like a hindrance shows up 10 times a day. How many times do you expose it with your wise attention? How many times do you say, I see you, I see what you're up to, and do the opposite? Now, if you've done, let's say, more than 5 times where you've exposed it for what it is, that's better, much better than doing it only once. Because you're adding more frequency in the opposite direction. You're actually applying wise, radical reflection or attention. You're exposing the hindrances. The hindrances will never change sides, okay? They will never become truly benevolent friends. They can help you if you know how to use them, though. There's that saying that military people would use, strategists. Keep your friends close, but keep your enemies closer. To keep an eye out on them. What are they up to? So your attention has to be on exposing what's happening. And you cannot do that when you're always buying into the stories that the hindrances are giving you. Accepting what's happening simply because we don't like to put effort. Because I might have not mentioned this, but to apply wise, radical attention involves just that, application, which means what? Effort. Effort. Much more effort is necessary to create something beautiful, so to create something good, to keep and maintain a clean house requires more effort than messing it up, doesn't it? To keep a place dirty, you don't have to do much. Just eat the food, keep the dirty plates dirty, and see what happens in the house. It'll be a slum. We need to put effort to see a change happen in our life. Effort in the right way. And what bhikkhus is that which nourishes the arising of skeptical doubts, uncertainty, or perplexity that had not yet arisen, and leads to the increase and further growth of the already arisen skeptical doubts, uncertainty, or perplexity. When bhikkhus one experiences mind objects, in Pali they're called Dhamma. This is we write it in small d. It means mind objects, not the teachings of Lord Buddha or Dhamma as Buddhism, dispensation. So mind objects that cause states of anxiety and uncertainty. Then, while allowing his mindfulness to drift away and be thus pulled into thoughts or states of uncertainty, he frequently goes back to them and gives them his constant, unwise, radical attention. And mind objects are crucial because you find them everywhere. Everything, in fact, starts as a mind object. In the Dhamma, there's a saying, anyone who sees the mind for what it is and sees the mind objects for what they are is really close to arahantship. Many people have made that breakthrough. When they saw that, wait a minute, this is not what it seems. It's just mind objects doing their thing. And the mind is seeing it. Oh, that aha moment has often been the breakthrough for many an arahant, as we read in this. Now, this itself will instigate and keep fueling those states of skeptical doubts, uncertainty, or perplexity into existence, nourishing and helping the unarisen skeptical doubts, uncertainty, or perplexity to arise in his mind. Because the person is paying so much attention to these mind objects that are occurring. Mind objects, it's a very grotesque term in English, mind object. What is that? The definition? Does it have a definition? Does it have a shape, a form to it? This mind object, is it solid in the mind? No, it's nothing like that. It could be an image. It could be a memory. It could be a thought. It could even be a feeling which is tied to a very subtle thought that you have taken as an object, as something to be reckoned with, to really pause your life for a moment for, to address. Why? Because it is reality. Why? Because I have forgotten this thing about anattā, about things being conditional based on causation. So nourishing and helping the unarisen skeptical doubts, uncertainty, or perplexity to arise in his mind, while also increasing and further perpetuating the growth of any skeptical doubts, uncertainty, or perplexity that are already present. This happens a lot with individuals when they come to the Dhamma for the first time, or for the first few years, or for the rest of their lives if they're non-practitioners proper, in terms of having this doubt towards the Dhamma, the teaching, or the Buddha, Lord Buddha, or asking questions. So you have some characters like Stephen Batchelor and others that are big names in the secular Buddhists and all that, and others, not just them, including some of the monks. But I mentioned him because he went to different lineages. I think they were both Mahayana or Vajrayana, and he became a monk for a while. I don't know how long, maybe a few months or a few years, and then he quit because it didn't match his ideas as to how things are supposed to be. So we bring the chips on our shoulder with us. So to this day, he writes books, and it's like a puzzle that is unfolding. That's a person who's lost their path. It's just intellectual jargon. They have something that looks like not Dhamma. There's a character in the Caucasus. It's called Mullah Nasruddin. You see it a lot in Sufi stories and in that region of the world as well. And there's this character, and his name is Nasruddin, and I think I mentioned him once. This story. One day, his wife comes in to the house, and she's hearing all this commotion from upstairs in the balcony. So she rushes upstairs to check to see what's happening, and the husband rushes in and grabs hold of the scissors and rushes back out to the balcony, and he's yelling and screaming. He's all like frazzled, and she's seeing from the edge of whatever she can see from the window feathers flying, and screams and squealing and screeching and him yelling. And so finally she makes it to the balcony, and she sees him standing next, all bloodied, by the way, with the scissors in his hand. His hands are, his body's covered in blood, but it's not his blood. He's holding a bird, or what looked like a bird, whose beak he had just cut, whose legs he just cut, whose wings he clipped. And he goes, aha, now you look like a bird. He grabbed hold of a crane, a beautiful Mademoiselle crane, and he cut her wings, her legs, her beak, to make it look like what he thinks a bird should look like. That's what many people do with the Dhamma, with their secular Buddhist nonsense. The Dhamma will never fit your own concepts. It's beyond concepts. Your concepts are all your ego, nothing else. You hold on to your concepts, you will not be able to enter through the doorway of the Dhamma. Like my dad used to say, son, the ladder is not supposed to be held sideways, because you will never be able to cross through that door. That's not how you hold a ladder. It's supposed to take you up, not sideways. So, skeptical doubts. The person has taken their own ideas, their own mind objects as reality by giving it attention, because this is something that we see a lot. Practitioners, people who claim to be practitioners. As I said, monks and laity, it makes no difference. We worship our ideas, but especially when it comes to this fifth hindrance, which is vicikiccha. So many people are stuck there. So what do? But because they have this attachment for some reason to the Dhamma, they feel, like they would be betraying if they would leave it entirely and go. Meanwhile, when you ask them what it means for them, they have nothing. So then the whole Dhamma episode of their life is based on blind faith. Hello, not much has changed now, has it? For you, from where you were to where you are now. And that's why a lot of Buddhist practitioners are depressed or are on meds. Yes. They go on retreats and things, but guess what? They take meds. Or the new medication of today is marijuana, and they've actually topped it by taking mushroom, psychedelic drugs, because it's not doing it. Why? It's not the Dhamma that is not doing it for them. Delivering, that is, what Lord Buddha is explaining here. It's their deeply held beliefs, meaning mind objects, meaning their skeptical doubts. Is a person happy? That's the best litmus test you can have a person go through. And that tells you a lot, because that tells you where their attention is. They're not happy campers. Second section, that which nourishes the 7 factors of awakening, sambojjhanga. The hindrances are addressed beautifully by the introduction presentation of the Satta Bojjhanga or Sambojjhanga, the 7 factors of awakening. They're crucial to understand because they are themselves the remedies to the hindrances. They attack those enemies. And we're going to see how, so long as they are being nourished, can they do that, address and eliminate the hindrances. And what bhikkhus is that which nourishes the arising of the mindfulness awakening factor, which had not yet arisen, and leads to the increase and further growth of the already arisen mindfulness awakening factor. When bhikkhus, one brings himself to live life with mindfulness and full awareness through the means of the 4 establishments of mindfulness. Well, let me read the whole book. In order to activate the mindfulness awakening factor, and thus, while further encouraging his attention to stay with those states, he frequently goes back to them and gives them his constant, wise, radical attention. So this is what we should be doing, in contrast to what we were doing that Lord Buddha was addressing with the hindrances. Because here, you're applying wise, radical attention. Here is where you are doing wise application of the mind through the attention you're giving to the thing. It doesn't say anything about good or bad things. That's why mindfulness is key. Your attention is the Midas touch, the thing that will turn it into gold, if you will. It doesn't matter what type of experiences we're going through, so long as you have the presence of the 4 establishments of mindfulness. Satipatthana, whether it's the body, things happening through the body, with the body, by the body, in the body. Feelings, you're observing feelings as well. Good, bad, neutral. You're observing your mind, the states that it goes in and out, it fluctuates. And then you're looking at the mind objects, the various different phenomena that are occurring, the Dhammas in the mind. So you're doing the 4 establishments of mind. You're established in mindfulness. That, by maintaining that again and again and again, means that you're frequently coming back to it by applying yoniso manasikara. That's the thing which is going to activate, nourish, feed, and sustain sati bojjhanga or sati sambojjhanga, the factor of awakening that we call sati. That's the recipe. That's the strategy. And what bhikkhus is that which nourishes the arising of the investigation of states awakening factor, which had not yet arisen, and leads to the increase and further growth of the already arisen investigation of states awakening factor. When bhikkhus, one intentionally and carefully probes those mind objects, qualities, and states of mind that are either skillful or unskillful, that are either blameless or blamable, discerning those that are bright and pure from those that are dark and impure, while further encouraging his attention to stay with that spirit of healthy inquiry. He thus frequently goes back to that investigative awakening factor and gives it his constant, wise, radical attention. It's like sharpening the knife. If you've ever cut a vegetable, tomato, onion, or anything, especially with tomatoes, I've noticed, and if your knife is not sharp enough, it's not a pleasant experience. So what do? You take it out on the tomato by pushing even more, pressing even more. Well, the tomato has nothing to do with it. It's the knife. That's the problem. It's not sharp enough. So we don't blindly, just like I was saying, you take the short road, shortcut to go to work, but you don't enter that freeway or roadway or highway, and that's the end of that. No, you still have to navigate the car. Navigating the car, in this case, is a metaphor that I'm using for Dhamma Vicaya, the investigation of states, awakening factor. You are sitting at the driver's seat. That's why no one can be responsible for you ultimately. No one will take you to hell. And by the same token, no one will take you to arahantship except for you. Responsibility. That means you need to be doing your own investigation. And that's why a lot of people like the faith-based aspects of what they call the Dhamma. Meanwhile, there isn't such a thing. There is no, if you have a table that stands on 4 legs, one of them, let's say, faith, and you chop off the other 3, good luck having that table stand. But that's what many people have turned their practice of Dhamma into. Worshipping of a teacher, worshipping even of the Buddha, worshipping not even this Buddha that died and gone, but some future Buddha. Yes, Maitreya is coming. Yes, I pray to Maitreya. He's not even a Buddha yet. What are you talking about? And good luck go finding him. Where? Doesn't even know you exist. But it's easy because it takes you away from using that investigation, awakening factor, to allow it to sprout and grow. It's personal responsibility through and through this Dhamma. Now, this itself will keep fueling the investigation of state's awakening factor, instigating it into existence, nourishing and helping the unarisen investigation of state's awakening factor to arise in his mind, while further increasing and expanding the growth of the already arisen investigation of state's awakening factor. So whatever investigation of states, Dhamma Vicaya, you are applying and is present in your life currently, it might be weak, it might be sporadic, it might be coming in and out here and there. But the very fact that you're placing your attention back to it and making the work done, you're doing the work basically. Don't fret, because that Dhamma Vicaya will become a powerful presence. It will turn into this beaming beacon, this lighthouse of powerful source of energy that we call Dhamma Vicaya, which is a crucial part of the recipe, basically, in having, once you have all the 7 factors of awakening, you're impenetrable by the hindrances. You're so solid, and once they line up, you attain arahantship. In fact, you don't have to wait for arahantship to kick in. Nibbana, at least even the first stage of it, will be attained by you when these factors of awakening are awakened in you. They will not do that with you living a passive life vis-a-vis the Dhamma. They require work, your work. Just like it requires you to work to get a paycheck, to feed your family, to feed your cat, your dog, to keep your house clean, to keep your body clean. It takes work. And what, bhikkhus, is that which nourishes the arising of the energy awakening factor, which had not yet arisen, and leads to the increase and further growth of the already arisen energy awakening factor? When, bhikkhus, one intentionally and persistently takes initiative, without procrastinating, delaying, while exerting himself and encouraging his attention to stay with that energy, to push through his inertia, he thus frequently goes back to it and gives it his constant, wise, radical attention. Now, this itself will keep fueling the energy awakening factor, instigating it into existence, nourishing and helping the unarisen energy awakening factor to arise in his mind, while further increasing and expanding the growth of the already arisen energy awakening factor. Vidya Sambojjhanga. Vira also means a vanquisher, conqueror, a hero. Vira. You become Mahavira in the right way, not the way the Jains call their leader. But you overcome your hindrances. That makes you truly a vanquisher. But what does the hero need running through his bloodstream? Really, energy. We need energy. So as you're meditating, and by the way, it's like a web, if you think of it. Earlier, we were talking about the hindrances, and I mentioned about sloth or drowsiness, sleepiness. What that means is the energy is lacking. You're shutting down. That's what it means. You're closing off those energy channels. You're saying that's enough. I'm going to preserve my energy resources. Energy is required. How you require it, or how you do it, how you bring it about, the presence of energy, it can be diverse as there are different human beings, different constitutions, different ways of processing and doing things. The way you bring up energy might be different than someone else. But the energy has to be brought up. So I have encouraged students in the past in their question of how do I bring up energy when I'm meditating? I would say, well, think of a positive situation that happened to you or will be happening to you after you're done with the sit. Again, it depends on the person that I'm speaking with and what comes to mind for me. Or it could be the joy, the spiritual joy, piti, which is coming up next. But what if I haven't felt it, Bhante, today? Okay, have you ever felt piti? Not pity, but piti, spiritual joy, sometimes called rapture. And they say yes. And already as they say yes, their face lights up because they recall that joy. Because your mind will never forget piti once it happens. But the hindrances were coming and blocking it off. And suddenly, by me simply having asked that question and the person remembering it by saying that out loud to me, guess what? They perk up. They sit up straight and they're smiling. What happened? More energy came in. The first time I tried this was 2012. I was in Indonesia, and somewhere in the mountains doing a retreat. And I said, that was the first time I actually did an all-nighter sit. And I was at the Dhamma hall. Everyone had gone to sleep. And initially, I wanted to sleep, but I was like, I have to get up and I have to do like 16 hours of meditation tomorrow. I have to get some sleep. And I was like, wait a minute. I have so much energy. Because I saw, as I was doing walking meditation outside, and the grounds were like grassy and and I could hear frogs all over the place. They were very, well, highly energized. Apparently that gave me energy, come to think of it, and I just walked back to the Dhamma hall and I sat there with my back against the wall because my back was killing me. And I sat there. I said, okay, maybe 1 hour. That became 2.5. I opened my eyes, 2.5 on, okay. It's only, a few more hours to go until sunrise. Boom! I don't know how many minutes had passed after, the wake-up call, but the bell was ringing and people were waking up. There was so much energy in me. I could still sit for another 10 hours. That is how much the instigating attention giving to a memory or piti could bring up in you, and be ready for constant surprises. So long as you're applying yoniso manasikara. Lord Buddha uses much more eloquent words than I am here, but this is something that can be done by us. That's what I'm trying to say in so many different words. And what bhikkhus is that which nourishes the arising of the spiritual joy awakening factor which had not yet arisen, and leads to the increase and further growth of the already arisen spiritual joy awakening factor. When bhikkhus, one places his focus upon any or all of those qualities that inspire him to be on this path, such as reflecting on his development and transformation through this training, which brings up joy in his heart, along with reflecting on the specially refreshing qualities of the triple gem, as he continuously encourages his attention to stay with that invigorating spiritual joy. He thus frequently goes back to it and gives it his constant, wise, radical attention. The hindrances will come and give you a totally different storyline for you to believe, because they have all the access codes to your mind. They have all the entry points, your secret lingo, your narratives. They know everything about you because, in a sense, they are you. From different eras, different lifetimes, they're sankhara based, right? So they will come and try to tell you and cloud your mind. I would see this in a different context, but essentially the same thing with patients in the clinic that I had been seeing as a therapist for some time. And they would say, Doc, I'm not changing. I have not changed. I have not changed. I'm the same person. I'm the same. Okay. After I listened to them for some time, I would ask them, if I were to take you back to where you were a year ago, saying or seeing or yourself surrounded by the same situation, would you be doing the same things that you did? Would you be doing them now, knowing what you know? And they won't usually allow me to even finish that question. And they would shake their head side to side. They would say, no, I'm a different person now. Same thing here. We need to look at where we are and compare it. There's nothing wrong here with doing a healthy comparing and contrasting. Because Lord Buddha, even in the, Chula Vedala Sutta, I believe, with Lady Dhammadinna and her once husband, the Anagami, Visakha, she was mentioning how important it is. And also in the Bhikkhuni Sutta, Venerable Bhikkhu Ananda was talking to that Bhikkhuni who tried to seduce him. And Venerable Ananda was telling her how it's healthy to look at, you can remove mana, conceit, with mana, or comparing and contrast, such as looking at someone else, or in this case, given my example of where you were and compare that with where you are now, would you do those things? If not, then that's a cause for celebration. It really is. You don't have to believe me, just see yourself in that situation and see your behavior compared to your earlier behaviors and how they were toxic and they were dragging you into more and more suffering. And now, if they happen again, or if they are happening again, your responses are totally different, which leaves you what? With more dukkha or less dukkha? Ergo, piti, sambojjhanga. Fantastic, incredible strategy Lord Buddha is giving us here with the 7 factors of awakening and how to nourish them. Again, without the presence of yoniso manasikara as the key ingredient, nothing will happen. Forget it. That's why I said it earlier. It is at the backbone of this Dhamma and discipline. Yoniso manasikara, wise, radical attention, that wise reflection, properly placed attention. And what bhikkhus is that which nourishes the arising of the tranquility of mind awakening factor which had not yet arisen, and leads to the increase and further growth of the already arisen tranquility of mind awakening factor. This is passaddhi. When bhikkhus, one observes the body becoming tranquil, along with the heart that is becoming tranquil and open, then he frequently goes back to this state of tranquility and gives it his constant, wise, radical attention. Now, this itself will keep fueling the tranquility of mind awakening factor, instigating it into existence, nourishing and helping the unarisen tranquility of mind awakening factor to arise in his mind, while further increasing and expanding the growth of the already arisen tranquility of mind awakening factor. When you're in the kitchen, when you're standing in line for something, and suddenly the mind drops to the state of tranquility, please don't ignore it. When your body feels, it's subtle. You're on a sofa, retiring for the day, you put your head on the pillow, and you just take that sigh and just give off that sigh, rather. Check in. How's the mind? How's the body? There's nothing wrong with you acknowledging the fact that you are tranquil, because that's going to induce, it's a circular pattern. It's a ricochet effect that you will notice. The moment you notice the body becomes tranquil, the mind becomes tranquil, the heart becomes tranquil. And when we are working with or dealing with or experiencing the piti sambojjhanga, which is the spiritual joy awakening factor, which is higher, much higher than any of the other joys or thrills that you feel in normal life, by the way. The highest form of joy, in essence. Immediately after that, there is immediately, unmistakably, otherwise it's not spiritual joy, it's not piti, it's something else. But immediately after piti, there is this drop into state of tranquility. That's why I try to remind people to just always pay attention to this. Now, it can, a lot of times after you've been practicing for a while, it can a lot of times happen while you're engaged in something else than sitting meditation or proper meditation. You might be doing something else, and all of a sudden, your mind just, it's just like quiet. You're looking at that Excel sheet in front of you on your screen. You're totally fine. Part of you comes in and says, what is that? What's happening? Did I do something wrong? What's happening? There is a moment for you to practice yoniso manasikara and acknowledge what is happening. That is applying mindfulness the correct way. Why acknowledge? Because Lord Buddha is saying, in order for you to really drop into more and more tranquility, passaddhi sambojjhanga, you need to notice when the body and the mind, or the heart in this case, chitta, Lord Buddha uses in the sutta, is tranquil in those moments, because it's almost like positive, giving positive feedback to a child who's always used to getting negative feedback. Don't do that, Johnny. Johnny, stop doing that. You're making mommy angry. That's a negative feedback. I'm going to punish you for that. Negative feedback. But next time Johnny does something good, you acknowledge with a smile. Say, I saw that. I appreciate what you did there, John. So that is positive feedback. So the moment you're applying sati, because it requires sati to see that your body is tranquil, to see that your heart is tranquil. And the more you do this, you are getting rid of the hindrances, because a tranquil mind also means, for that moment at least, the hindrances are nowhere to be found. And what a blessing that is. By the way, you're experiencing nirodha, the cessation of dukkha. It's not some other time, dimension over there in the future for you where you will experience cessation. It happens all the time if you're practicing it correctly, if there is sati, if you're observing, and in one way or the other, you're applying the 7 factors of awakening, because there's never going to be a cessation without you applying the 7 factors of awakening, period. It's not some trance-like state that happens. It takes work. It definitely takes every single one of the steps that we went over. And what bhikkhus is that which nourishes the arising of the collectedness of mind awakening factor. That's samadhi sambuddha, which had not yet arisen, and leads to the increase and further growth of the already arisen collectedness of mind awakening factor. When bhikkhus, one brings the mind to rest upon the sign of that which establishes the heart in deep serenity and maintains it there without dispersing it, while the mind becomes more stable and firmly settled. He thus frequently goes back to this state, giving it his constant, wise, radical attention. So if you notice, passaddhi, or tranquility of mind, and samadhi have everything to do with each other. In a sense, one could say they're the 2 sides of the same coin. Because if your tranquility is so supportive for samadhi to take place, you could be still in a state of samadhi even with your eyes open. You don't have to be in some, closed off, some deeply absorbed state where you're having these wild experiences that you go and validate by reading the Visuddhimagga to me and saying, this is what's happening. But then the moment I ask you to open your eyelids, boom, all of it is gone. Well, really? Samadhi? Has nothing to do with samadhi. Now, this itself will keep fueling the collectedness of mind awakening the more attention you bring it, because look at the words here. Deep serenity, and that is maintained without dispersing it. So is there concentration here? Absolutely. But it's open. It's not one-pointed, but you're focused. Absolutely. There's a presence. There's a stillness. There's a settling. The hindrances will come, or something happens, this and that. The deeper you go is very much dependent on how meticulously you're attentive not to allow that sacred space to become dispersed, that attention to become dispersed, scattered. If it's becoming scattered, then that's basically the restlessness which we saw in the hindrances, the group 4 of the hindrances. Nourishing and helping the unarisen collectedness of mind awakening factor to arise in his mind, while further increasing and expanding the growth of the already arisen collectedness of mind awakening factor. So you see here again how Lord Buddha is using the 7 factors of awakening as the very antidotes for the hindrances, to addressing the hindrances, the nivarana. And what bhikkhus is that which nourishes the arising of the equanimity awakening factor, dukkha, which had not yet arisen, and leads to the increase and further growth of the already arisen equanimity awakening factor. When bhikkhus, one induces in himself a balanced attitude towards everything, whether internal or external, encouraging the heart to feel the quiet safety that equanimity brings to everything, while he supports it further by encouraging situations and choices for himself that help bring about this equanimous state of well-being. He thus frequently goes back to this state, giving it his constant, wise, radical attention. Now, this itself will keep fueling the equanimity awakening factor, instigating it into existence, nourishing and helping the unarisen equanimity awakening factor to arise in his mind, while further increasing and expanding the growth of the already arisen equanimity awakening factor. So not making a big deal of whatever is happening. I was reminded again this week of that Chinese, I think it's a Chinese proverb, where a farmer wakes up one day and he looks in his field and he sees a beautiful white stallion among his horses. White, beautiful, clean looking, regal looking horse, which means, it costs a lot of money in those days. It still does. So the neighbors, the other farmers hear about it and they come and they're celebrating and they're like, oh, you're so lucky. You're so lucky. You have a horse. You have this. You could sell it and you can get like so much money, gold pieces for this. And he says to the you're so lucky part, he says, perhaps. A few days later, his son is riding the horse, the white stallion, and he falls and he breaks his leg. The farmers hear about it, the neighbors, and they rush to him and they say, oh, it must be terrible because now your only son's leg is broken and no one's going to give his daughter to him for marriage. You're such an unlucky man because how is he going to, cultivate the land? How is he going to carry your name? How is that, all that? And the man says, perhaps. And they say, what do you mean, perhaps? It's your only son. He has a broken leg. No one's going to marry him. He's not going to be able to make a living. What do you mean, perhaps? You're an idiot. You're, this and that. So they walk away. Less than a week passes, and the king's men show up in that town and village, and there's this royal decree that the announcer is reading, and it says, the emperor is going to war, and every household has to give at least one of their male children, enlisted, actually drafted. Everybody sends their son except for him because they check his son and he's got a broken leg. No one's going to be dragging him into the front line. So they leave his son behind. And now the farmers show up again at his door and they say, oh, you're so fortunate. You. If your son had not broken his leg, he would have been alongside our own sons in the battlefield. So you're lucky because your son is now spared. We might never have our sons back. The man says, perhaps. So when your mind comes in with the hindrances and says, oh, this is the end of the world, it could be great, it could be bad. Just say perhaps to yourself. That essentially is what you'll be bringing into the scene, upekha, a sense of that. It's not, of course, the awakening factor, but it can lead you to the state of balance, which the more you pay attention to, yoniso manasikara, the more you will become established in it, settled in it, feel natural in it, contentedness in it. Now, this third section, we go back to the hindrances, and this is Lord Buddha's way of describing to us how to starve. He started with the hindrances. Now we're coming back to the hindrances, but not as a nourishment, but how to cut off the supply line, as they say, the food to keep them alive. And the last one, as you might have guessed, we'll be addressing as to how to starve the 7 factors, of awakening. Also, what needs to happen in order for them to never grow or to die out, whatever good, whatever any of the 7 factors of awakening that might be there. That's going to be the last section. So let's address this. I will try to skip some of the sections, paragraphs that are repetitions to the ones before, but anyhow, it's available, the PDFs, so please do print them out and go over them yourselves in your own time. That which deprives the obstructions from their nourishment persists. And what bhikkhus is that which deprives the yet unarisen sensual desire from its nourishment, thereby ending it right there on the spot, not letting it sprout, while also not letting the already arisen sensual desire to either become strong or dominate the heart? When, bhikkhus, one brings up the sign, impression, or image of that which is repulsive, rousing a sense of unmistakable and immediate disgust toward the object, while compelling his mindfulness to stay with that aspect instead of the seemingly pleasurable traits and features being experienced at that moment. This in itself then obliterates the very pull the sensual desire was to have upon him. In this manner, he frequently goes back to this awareness of the repulsive and gives it his constant, wise, radical attention. So earlier we saw the hindrances in how we should not be working with, meaning letting them take the reins, take the driver's seat, and steer us into more and more dukkha, more suffering because of wrong attention. Now, when we're applying right, meaning wise, radical attention, correct reflection, when we see something beautiful, instead of being sucked in, pulled into the details, because that's where we lose the battle. The moment we start telling us about, well, look at that, look at this, look at that, this part of the song, this part of the scene, oh, look how beautiful this person is. He is this way, she is this way, etc., etc. What are you talking about? You're talking about specific traits and features and characteristics. Already you're sold. Already you're gone. It's so hard for you to be pulled out of that because you're now believing that narrative. So instead of being sucked into the pleasurable aspects of it, you need to present an ugly aspect of that. Like last week, we talked about Chulapantaka and him saying Rajo Haranang with the wiping of the piece of clean cloth. But it became ugly, repulsive to him because it became all dirty. That was shocking. So bear that in mind. Always use the opposite to counteract its grab, its pull, its hold on you and your attention. And the only way you do that is by applying wise attention. And what bhikkhus is that which deprives the yet unarisen ill will or sense of loathing or hatred from its nourishment, thereby ending it right there on the spot, not letting it sprout, while also not letting the already arisen ill will, sense of loathing, or hatred to either become strong or dominate the heart, not letting it. When bhikkhus, one infuses within himself the powerfully freeing presence of loving kindness, which permeates the heart, while compelling his mindfulness to stay with that liberating feeling of the heart's release through loving kindness, instead of the seemingly painful or unpleasant traits or features being experienced at that moment. This then leads to obliterating the very resistance which ill will or hatred were to have generated within him. Thus, he frequently goes back to this awareness of the heart's release through loving kindness and gives it his constant, wide, radical attention. There are way too many people in the world, at least on the spotlight, that can easily be described as loathsome. People who are terrible. People not just in history books, but people living in our lifetime now, today. And I've actually spoken with, communicated with in the past bhikkhus, very, very well-known bhikkhus in the world of Dhamma, scholarly Dhamma, really, who went off on heads of state, making political statements while telling me that they're not, they don't belong in any political camp. But you could tell the hatred and anger in their voice. Where's metta there? That's what Lord Buddha is talking about. I discovered this when I was, I'm a history buff. I used to read a lot about history. And when I would read about the deplorable things that Hitler had done, how could you not hate such a person? But then I saw footage of him playing with his dogs, with his canine. So much love and tenderness. Can we bring such images to mind? I mean, this vicious person, the person who's killing thousands and thousands of people, not just a person, but are they always like that? Always, always, always? No, you will find a few milliseconds, at least in their day, where they are perhaps holding the spoon with such tenderness. Maybe they're going and tasting that food and going, that tastes great. How is that different than you or I tasting food and noticing that it is delicious? So there is some humanity there somewhere. Yes, possibly for only 4 or 5 minutes during the day, the whole day. The rest, he's just scheming to kill. What I'm trying to say is, it's so difficult for you to not see the horrific things that people do or beings are doing, even today. We're living through some of the worst times in human history. The worst. I would say even worse than World War II and I combined. Even though we don't have the name World War III, but it's happening. It's been happening for some time, for a few years now. But so many people hate individuals on both sides. Can we apply metta? I believe yes. If Lord Buddha has given us a teaching, he would not have given it to us unless it was applicable. It is application-based. So yes, metta can be generated to overcome your feeling, at least. It's not necessarily going to change the situation outside of you. That person is not going to become a saint. Hitler is not going to become a saint. We know that. But what is my attitude towards him going to be? That is crucial. Hitler or Netanyahu or somebody else, Stalin, is not going to take you to hell. You will. That's their job. That's their thing. They're dealing with their only inheritance is their karma. Period. So is mine. So I'm responsible for that. Nobody else, despite whatever they're doing. I can criticize them, but who cares ultimately? How is that going to have an impact? But my attitude towards Stalin, towards Hitler, that I can work on by applying metta and send it towards them, towards places like that in the world where there's so much injustice, inhumanity taking place. And what bhikkhus is that which deprives the yet unarisen drowsiness and sloth or procrastination from their nourishment, thereby ending them right there on the spot, not letting them sprout, while also not letting the already arisen drowsiness and sloth or procrastination to either become strong or dominate the heart. When bhikkhus, one intentionally and persistently takes initiative without procrastinating or delaying to take action, while exerting himself and encouraging his attention to stay with that energy to push through his inertia, he thus frequently goes back to it and gives it his constant, wise, radical attention. Now, this itself will deprive the not yet arisen drowsiness and sloth or procrastination from their nourishment, thereby starving and ending them right there on the spot. In addition to greatly weakening and eliminating the growth of any drowsiness and sloth or procrastination that are already present. When you're feeling drowsy or sleepy, it's not like you should judge yourself. That's not the point I was making, or I'm making. No. You see it for what it is, but let's say you're going to get $1 million promotion tomorrow morning if you finish this paper, this project, which you only have about an hour and a half to work on, and that's it. But you're so sleepy and you need the money. You're telling me that you're going to go ahead and sleep that $1 million promotion away from you for good? No. You will put anything. You will put, like, I remember we as children we used to put matchsticks sometimes. We could break them and put them right, to stay up late so that we could do homework. Splash our face with cold water. You will do anything to keep yourself awake. That's the best way to overcome drowsiness. And procrastination, the same thing. I tell people, you need to make decisions. You stop making decisions, you stop being alive. Make any decision you can, any decision. When you've always lived in the passenger seat, that's wonderful if you can. Try it. Small decisions, they don't have to be, earth-shattering in their importance. And what bhikkhus is that which deprives the yet unarisen restlessness and remorse or worry from their nourishment, thereby ending them right there on the spot, not letting them sprout, while also not letting the already arisen restlessness and remorse or worry to either become strong or dominate the heart force. So how can we deprive, Lord Buddha is asking, these restlessness, remorse, and worry? When bhikkhus one permeates his heart with a sense of peace and tranquility, instead of allowing himself to be taken by the seemingly agitating traits or features being experienced at that moment, this leads to obliterating the effects that restlessness and remorse or worry were to have upon him. Thus, he frequently goes back to this awareness of peace and tranquility spreading throughout his heart, and gives it his constant, wise, radical attention. Do you see here what's happening? It's the opposite of what Lord Buddha was saying in regards to something that was creating in you sensual lust, sensual desire. Kama chanda, the first of the 5 hindrances. So here, your heart is already bubbling up, it's boiling, it's agitated. Your mind is agitated. In fact, that is the current normal state of human beings. There's a worldwide effort at keeping us agitated. You look for it everywhere. You see it everywhere. But agitation doesn't work alone. It has a wingman, as they say. Worry. Situations that thoughts, even, or ideas that are planted in the minds of people that make them worried. A few years ago, it was the COVID thing. But even before then, it was some other thing. Terrorists, this, that. There's always something. Now, all of a sudden, the CDC became a household name in the world. I was surprised. People know about CDC, Center for Disease Control, yeah, whatever. People know about it in Asia. Why would they have to know about it in Asia? It's an American institution. It's in the United States. Why should people in Kuala Lumpur be concerned about what CDC says? Or why would people in Australia, in the UK, in Japan be concerned? Why? Because it's a wonderful tool. I'm just giving one example, by the way. because I get every day emails. Oh, there's this new thing, this new threat coming. That's the connection that I'm trying to make here. Or people are worried about their money. For good reason, of course, because of what's been happening to them. People are worried about their mates, their children. What's happening at schools with children? Children are being told, it's an open book, basically. Whatever you decide, that's what's going to be your gender. What? People are confused. If you're a parent, you're beyond being at a loss. And if the child somehow grows up to be an adult, or at least a young adult in their 18 years old, don't worry, there's other factors that will make you stay agitated throughout life, such as there's a war, and there goes your son, there goes your daughter. They might never come back. Or if they come back, they're going to be maimed or with PTSD. You will never identify them again. And if you somehow survive old age and you're getting to pension years, now there's no money left, governments are saying. So what I'm trying to do here is, as I always have tried to do, is talk about contemporary issues that we are dealing with. This is not what Lord Buddha is talking about. This is not irrelevant. What we've been going over Lord Buddha's teaching, it's not irrelevant. It is very much relevant. But in those days, people were agitated too, but not to this extent. That's what I'm trying to say. So today we need the Dhamma more than ever. Why? Because the human brain is so amped up with anxiety, with agitation. I remember when I started teaching high school, the attention span was about 22 minutes of an average person, an adult, anywhere from 18 to 25, 32, was 22 minutes. That's why they would have shows, be interrupted so many times. But they would lose interest with that thing that they were watching after the 22nd minute. Why? The attention is gone. They want something else to occupy them. Now that attention span has dropped to a mere seconds. Seconds. Because the person is looking at their phone, and they're looking for a clip that is so short that if it exceeds a few seconds, they're going to swipe it. Not interested. That person lost money. So they've been training us to be always agitated, full of anxiety, restlessness. So how is the person going to sit down and meditate and all of a sudden drop into, let's say, deep level of tranquility when that is their norm? That state of restlessness is their norm. So today, more than ever, we need to be practicing sitting meditation, or any form of meditation where you're applying the 4 establishments of mindfulness. You need it as badly as you need oxygen. To have that moment that is absent of anxiety, absent of restlessness. Basically, that's what I can just in a nutshell tell you. This is it. Your worst enemy is your anxiety. Your worst enemy is the state of agitation. That's why Venerable Mahamud Galana was not able to attain initially, even though it took him a week to attain. But he listened to Lord Buddha, because he was also struggling with restlessness, yes, but even more so, he was struggling with tinhamidha, the sloth, the sleepiness, the drowsiness. But he saw that there is agitation, and Lord Buddha said, no, so long as there is that agitation, moggallana, you won't have that breakthrough. So he allowed him in the Pachalayamana Sutta, in the dozing off Sutta. I think it was one of the earliest suttas we've done together in this series. He says, nothing is fit to be clung to, moggallana. Nothing. Sabbe Dhamma nalang abhinivesaya. Nothing is fit to be clung to. So the moment you drop that worry, oh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Well, worrying will never help. They've done research on this, There's no way that you can help your situation by worrying. You still need to take initiative. But worrying comes in and breaks your back from taking that initiative. So it's a lose-lose situation. So similarly, please stop telling yourself that awakening is not for you. It's for those people that you read about in the suttas. No. That's why I keep going back to the suttas and try to get examples of, I don't have to try hard, but they're just there, of people like you and I who have struggled with anxieties, who have struggled with restlessness, with sloth and torpor. I mean, come on. Venerable Mahamoggallana had to deal with drowsiness and sleepiness? Yes. But he was second to Lord Buddha in his psychic abilities. Yes. Once he overcame those impediments. And what bhikkhus is that which deprives the yet unarisen skeptical doubt, uncertainty, or perplexity from its nourishment, thereby ending it right there on the spot, not letting it sprout, while also not letting the already arisen skeptical doubt, uncertainty, or perplexity to either become strong or dominate the heart? When bhikkhus one intentionally and carefully probes those mind objects, qualities and states of mind that are either skillful or unskillful, either blameless or blamable, discerning those that are bright and pure from those that are dark and impure, while further encouraging his attention to stay with that spirit of healthy inquiry. He thus frequently goes back to honestly looking at these factors and gives them his constant, wise, radical attention. So you're not sugarcoating anything, but you're also being fair. An earlier example I gave was how do you see yourself from a year ago to now? Have there been any improvements in you? It could also be about your practice, right? So do you get to be pulled in as much as you were before starting this practice is a good question. Versus listening blindly to that skeptical doubt that comes in every time you're having a bad sit and says, oh, you're so lousy. You're never going to get this. You can never sit. Meanwhile, the person sat for 45 minutes. But initially, they would struggle with 5 minutes. So for them, it's like, no, it's null and void, the fact that they're sitting for 45 minutes. So if you want to address this skeptical doubt, hindrance, you need to be honest. You need to do a before and after. Also, that's one example as to looking at the qualities and the states of mind. Maybe you're not taking into consideration the fact that somebody just tried to run you over on the road, and you come and sit and you're saying, why is my heart palpitating? Why am I so jittery? Why am I? Hold on, let's be reasonable here. Did something happen? Yeah, I just caught my husband cheating. Okay, and you want to sit for an hour after that? Take a moment. Go out, just sit down, talk to someone, this and that. So sometimes people come with so much psychological, emotional baggage, and they expect themselves to be the next Buddha in their ability to overcome these challenging situations. And then what do? They collapse upon themselves by pointing the finger back at them, critically, of course, judgmentally, of course, more harshly than a Stalin would, of course, without really being kind. And hence, this is the reason why I insist often to have people practice metta, because people's hearts have become so jaded, so tough. But even an elephant's tough hide is soft. I discovered that in Thailand. They can sense it. So be soft, please, with yourself, and reasonable. And out the door goes that skeptical doubt of yours, because it's not you. It's not you. That's what anattā is. It's not. This is just ideas, mind objects that we've taken on and latched on, like those generals who stick those things on them, on their chest, and think, yeah, I am these markers, these insignia. Stupid thing. The fourth section, that which deprives the awakening factors from their nourishment. So now we're in the last section. What is it that kills off, basically, or stops the growth of the awakening factors, the bojjhanga? And what, bhikkhus, is that which deprives the not yet arisen mindfulness awakening factor from its necessary nourishment, thereby starving and not allowing it to sprout, while also not letting the already arisen mindfulness awakening factor to grow and reach healthy maturity, and thus its fullest potential? When, bhikkhus, one does not bring himself to live life with mindfulness and full awareness through the means of the four establishments of mindfulness in order to activate the mindfulness awakening factor, nor does he encourage his attention to stay on them, thus he constantly goes back to living with unwise radical attention. So this is the opposite of what Lord Buddha was telling us in regards to what is the cause for the growth and the sprouting and the strengthening of these factors of awakening. So you give it the attention of the satipatthana while walking, while sitting, while lying down, while standing, watching the feelings, the good, the bad, and the neutral. You're watching the various fluctuating states of the mind. Sometimes it's depressed, sometimes it's restless, sometimes it's jubilant, sometimes it's quiet. You're watching those. You're not taking them on as a badge and saying, oh, identification, and saying, yeah, this is who I am. No, you're seeing it as mere state of citta. That's why it's called cittanupassana. And then you're also looking at the mind objects coming and going. You're looking at the hindrances. They're part of the Dhammanupassana, the fourth aspect of the Satipatthana. So, but here the person is not applying that anymore. He's not applying the yoniso manasikara. It is ayoniso, unwise. You're looking at other things. That's a guarantee that your sati sambojjhanga will not be growing anytime soon, if ever. And whatever you might have had of sati, that's going to be gone pretty soon. I'll just skip over the last part of each because it's a repetition. And what, bhikkhus, is that which deprives the not yet arisen investigation of states awakening factor from its necessary nourishment, thereby starving and not allowing it to sprout, while also not letting the already arisen investigation of states awakening factor to grow and reach healthy maturity, and thus its fullest potential? This is the Dhamma Vichaya, right? Investigation of states, sambojjhanga. When, bhikkhus, one neither intentionally nor carefully probes those mind objects or states of mind that are either skillful or unskillful, then he does not investigate and discern those qualities that are blamable from those that are blameless, those that are bright and pure from those that are dark and impure. Thus, he does not encourage himself to keep his attention with that spirit of healthy inquiry, and instead constantly goes back to living with unwise radical attention, basically the state of a putujjana. Someone who says, this is me, this is who I am, this is what I'll end up being. I am my faults, I am my past, or I am my attainments, I am this, I am that. In a superlative thought. Both are wrong, because you're, first of all, you've dropped the yoniso manasikara, which means all your conclusions are going to be false. Basically, that's another way of looking at yoniso manasikara versus ayoniso manasikara. The wisely placed attention at the point of origin. Yes, that's what yoni means, point of origin. And what bhikkhus is that which deprives the not yet arisen energy awakening factor from its necessary nourishment, thereby starving and not allowing it to sprout, while also not letting the already arisen energy awakening factor to grow and reach healthy maturity and thus its fullest potential. This is Vidya Sambhojjhanga. When bhikkhus one neither intentionally nor persistently takes initiative and lives with procrastination instead, always delaying to take action, and not exerting himself, he constantly encourages his attention to stay complacent without pushing himself out of his inertia. Thus, he continuously keeps falling back to living with unwise radical attention. The person ends up doing the same thing. They even have terms for it, right? I'm back in that cycle. I would hear that a lot. Sorry, I'm stuck in that cycle. I can't seem to get out of this rut. Who's going to pull you out of it? AAA is not going to come and pull your truck out of the mud hole. You're going to have to come up with the energy, the gusto, the initiative, the taking of the initiative to take on this task. Siddhartha Gautama had everything working against him, in the sense that against his desire to cut himself free and to find out the path and to show that path to everyone so that they too can get rid of samsara once and for all. But everything was working against him. He was the son of a king. He had a beautiful wife. He had a beautiful wife who gave him a son, a healthy son. He had a father who adored him, who gave him armies, who gave him wealth, who gave him all this. He's healthy. He's young, still black hair. And everybody in the court is saying, Lord, you forget about this asceticism nonsense. You're going to be the next Chakravartin, world-conquering, universal monarch. Imagine the energy that a person must have to walk away from all that. Your drive must be compelling. That is it. Sometimes it feels like that, to walk away from what you're doing so that you can do a little bit of walking meditation or sitting meditation. I get it. But can we be inspired by the example of Lord Buddha and others? We keep thinking about Venerable Sariputta, all these people, Ananda, and countless other bhikkhus and bhikkhunis who walked away from a life that a modern human being would just go crazy about with envy. And no, they didn't do it the way they do it now in India and other places, or the rest of the world too, where they go and live their life, have their fun, and when the body's breaking down, they go and put on the robes. Somebody's going to be there for them to take care of them, right? Great insurance policy. That was not the case at the time of Lord Buddha. People were doing it when they were in the prime of their life. So I think about these things and how the taking of action is missing today. That's why we're so worried. That's why people aren't asking questions like, what is this a big deal? Like, why are you guys always trying to make us worried about things? People aren't doing that. People are getting more and more stuck at home. They're afraid of leaving the house to go and see the blue sky. Well, if it's still blue, with all the chemtrails going on. But at least to go out, to walk, just to walk around your block, your own neighborhood. People are afraid. But the taking of initiative starts with you even sitting at home. You have to allow yourself, saying, what if? Siddhartha Gautama said, what if I could walk out of those huge gates of the palace and go into the unknown? It must have been somewhat terrifying also for him. Especially when he cut his royal, as they say, his hair, the braids that he had growing for years. And it's a sign of a king in those days. To cut that himself, that would be like a conquering opponent. A king would come, and when you're caught when you're captive, prisoner of war, that would be one of the greatest insults to you. They would cut your hair. So you're now impotent. But you're doing that to yourself when there's none of those situations. Something must be driving you. But to not have that drive means you also are killing the possibilities for you to have virya sambojjhanga, the factor of awakening of energy. And what bhikkhus is that which deprives the not yet arisen spiritual joy awakening factor from its necessary nourishment, thereby starving and not allowing it to sprout, while also not letting the already arisen spiritual joy awakening factor to grow and reach healthy maturity, and thus its fullest potential? When bhikkhus one does not place his focus upon any of those qualities that inspire him to be on this path, such as reflecting on his development and transformation through this training, the states of mind that bring up joy in the heart, nor appreciating the especially refreshing qualities of the triple gem. He thus forgoes all that which invigorate the heart, as he misses out due to his unwise radical attention. See, I personally find myself in such a privileged position for the fact that I'm alive. And 2,600 years before my birth, almost, there was a person, a man who was born and who went the distance. He became the supreme being of all existence by becoming a Buddha. And now I owe it to him. We have work to do. That gives me joy. That I have a shot. We each have a shot at this. At ending suffering. And no, it's not blind faith. It's the work that you're doing. You're seeing samudaya, nirodha. Samudaya, nirodha. Origination, cessation. Origination of suffering, cessation of suffering. From the very choices that I make in my life, vis-a-vis situations, in the way that, like I was saying, comparing and contrasting. If I do this, will this make me happy? Ultimately, not momentarily, temporarily, but ultimately, is this going to make me happy? If the answer is no, I don't do it. What happened? Did that produce a result? In a way, yes. What was the result? ending of that potential stuff. There you go. So Nibbana is the grand prize, but we have many, 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 many prizes along the way, which cause us to be quite joyful. And the more you have that, the more you develop the sense of confidence and trust in seeing it, the proof of it. Ehipassiko, Lord Buddha says, sanditiko, to be right here, witnessed, seen, experienced right now. And what bhikkhus is that which deprives the not yet arisen tranquility of mind awakening factor from its necessary nourishment, thereby starving and not allowing it to sprout, while also not letting the already arisen tranquility of mind awakening factor to grow and reach healthy maturity and thus its fullest potential. When bhikkhus, one observes neither the body nor the heart becoming tranquil, and moreover, does not seek to go back to this state of tranquility with sufficient frequency, and instead constantly goes back to living with unwise radical attention. He thus lets the body and heart live with agitation. Allowing the body and the heart to be in agitation means that first you need to neglect to observe that that is happening. People would come and say, I don't know, he was such a good kid. Usually parents and things. But I didn't expect him to be doing this, such a thing, this horrible thing that he did. Okay. It doesn't get to be dropped from the sky, folks. Usually there have been steps, tiny little micro behavioral changes that were occurring, but you as a parent were not there to observe or give attention to. So when you are collapsing suddenly with so much agitation, your world is not going to collapse just like that overnight. There are many, many, many signals you will get. So what we normally do is we ignore. So similarly with tranquility, like I was saying, it might happen during the day when you're cooking, when you're standing, when you're tying your shoelaces, when you're going up or down the stairs, something. And your mind drops into a state of tranquility. Be there for it. See that. And in a way, celebrate that by acknowledging it quietly. You don't have to say anything to it. Just sit with it, have sati, and allow it to sink in, because the allowing of it will allow the mind later on, when you sit to meditate, to develop into pasadhi sambojjhanga. Because the 7 factors of awakening are not preserved or reserved for some special beings out there who are better than you. No. Every single one of the arahants, including Lord Buddha, were putujanas at one point. Were not arahants. They had not seen the Dhamma. Every one of them. So you have to start from the gunk. You have to start from the cesspool, yes. But we're not in a cesspool because we're practicing sila for the very, at the least. And we're practicing samadhi, wonderful, and we have some insights as we practice. Okay, in many ways, in fact, we are much better off as far as levels are concerned compared to those arahants were when they first came to the Dhamma. Because we have so much Dhamma available than those individuals did. So acknowledging these moments of tranquility is key. I don't know if I read that, but I'll read that. When bhikkhus, one observes neither the body nor the heart becoming tranquil, and moreover does not seek to go back to this state of tranquility with sufficient frequency, he thus lets the body and heart live with agitation. Why? Because you're not applying yoniso manasikara, again, wise radical attention. And what bhikkhus is that which deprives the not yet arisen collectedness of mind awakening factor, samadhi sambojjhanga, from its necessary nourishment, thereby starving and not allowing it to sprout, while also not letting the already arisen collectedness of mind awakening factor to grow and reach healthy maturity, and thus its fullest potential. When bhikkhus, one does not bring the mind to rest upon the sign of that which establishes the heart in deep serenity, nor maintains it there without dispersing it, and by not putting enough focus on it to make the heart become more stable and firmly settled, he thus misses out due to his unwise radical attention. That's why you're not going to go deep into samadhi, because you're too lost in your concepts. Well, yesterday I was able to go into the samadhi. Even the teacher said I did. So how come I'm not able to do it today? You're not going to be going in and experiencing samadhi if you're full of it, full of hot air. In scuba diving, you wear this jacket is called a buoyancy control device. It's a BCD acronym. And what it does is basically it's attached to the air tank behind you. And there's some tubes and things. So the air, to allow you to float, it fills up inside this jacket. But what would happen every time I would try to do initially doing scuba diving years ago, everyone else would go into the water and I would still be hovering on the surface, not going deep. And then I realized there's some air pockets inside the jacket. So I had to really expel those out. Once I did, I was able to sink and sink and sink and join the rest of the divers. So if you have all these concepts in your mind, expectations, then you have concepts. You don't have sunyata in your heart. You're not approaching it with humility, with emptiness, with acceptance, with tolerance as to whatever happens, attitude. You're coming to the cushion with such a long list of requirements. You got a lot of hot air. Expel those before you sit. Leave yourself open. Trusting, but with a set of strategies, and that's what Lord Buddha is giving us here. And what bhikkhus is that which deprives the not yet arisen equanimity awakening factor from its necessary nourishment, thereby starving and not allowing it to sprout, while also not letting the already arisen equanimity awakening factor to grow and reach healthy maturity, and thus its fullest potential? When bhikkhus, one does not induce in himself a balanced attitude towards everything, whether internal or external, neither encouraging the heart to feel the quiet safety that equanimity brings to everything, nor does he support it by further heartening himself through greeting situations with a deep sense of balanced safety. Remember, that safety has to come from you. Don't look for it outside. And that's what's creating more worrisome and thoughts, states of mind in people, more agitation, because everybody's being taught and told to look outside for safety. There can never be safety, not even your body, because it's getting old as I speak. You're older now than you were when you first sat in this session today. So try to find that state of balance in your mind. And thus, by not putting enough focus on the mind to make it become more balanced and equanimous, he misses out due to his unwise radical attention. Now, this itself will deprive the not yet arisen equanimity awakening factor from its necessary nourishment, thereby starving and not allowing it to sprout, while also not letting the already arisen equanimity awakening factor to grow and reach healthy maturity, and thus its fullest potential. As you very well experienced, I think, it's quite saturated with Dhamma, this stuff. It's so, because it's speaking about these two pillars of the Dhamma, the Dhammic training, Patipada. One is the bundle of hindrances, the enemies, and or the poisons, if you will, use that term, and their antidote, their anti-venom. And those are the 7 factors of awakening. You don't have to do it sequentially. The 7 factors of awakening are happening if you are practicing these principles that I shared with you from the teachings we have in the Dhamma. You already are working. So please don't think of it as one, linear fashion. Like I have to first understand and practice sati, and then one day I'll get into Dhamma Vicaya, investigation of states, and then I'll graduate into the next one. No. Every moment of sati, if you're doing it correctly, you're practicing the 7 factors of awakening. That's how so many people became awakened at the time of Lord Buddha. Illiterate individuals, many of whom did not even know the 4 Noble Truths. They just liked what they heard that day, because many of them were being dragged by somebody, some friend, who were like, you should come and hear this. You should come and hear this teacher teaching. And they would come. That's how there were all kinds of people there listening to Lord Buddha. You had politicians, you had the rulers, you had accountants, you had businessmen, businesswomen, like in the case of Visakha. You had prostitutes. You had serial killers. Angulimala, who became an arhat. You, no matter how bad you think you are, you will never beat Venerable Angulimala. He was a serial killer who was even about to kill his own mother as his victim number 1,000. If somebody like that could make the switch, how could you not? So I will pause here and see if there are any comments, questions. I hope we didn't rush through this wonderful stuff, such amazing, as you saw. But I encourage you to go through it at your own pace. You might want to do it section by section, or read the first section regarding the hindrances as to what feeds them, and then what kills them off, what starves them. So you could do them in such a, I didn't want to divide the sutta like that because it would be inappropriate, but the structure is kept the way it was in Pali. But you can to, print it out and put them, like cut those sections and join them together. What is increasing the hindrance? What is killing them off? We can use that word, by the way, okay? In the Dhamma, we don't have to be all woke on that. And then you also do the 7 factors of awakening. What feeds them and what starves them as well. So sometimes, for some of us, visual indicators and diagrams really can do wonders. So I've had students who would print and then put those on the walls to remind themselves. So if there are no questions or comments, let us transfer some. Akasata Jabumata Deva Nagamahidika Bunyantang Anamoditva Chirang Rakantu Lokasasana Akasatha Chabumata Devanagamahitika Punyantanganamoditva Chirangratantu Akasatha Chabumata Devanagamahitika Punyantanganamoditva Chirangratantu Mamparanti. May the Dhamma that has been preserved by those noble bhikkhus over the course of millennia, over 2,500 years, may it sprout in your those seeds of Dhamma, and may they grow those seeds and bring you the fruits the Dhamma provides. And may you make the very most of this life has to offer. This precious, precious human birth that you have, and the time that you have, and your willingness to listen, your willingness to learn, and your willingness to practice what you do. That's how wisdom is gained. That's how freedom is gained. And I wish that upon all of us. And the merits of all that may be shared with the Devas, the Naga, the Vedas, especially the miserable, hungry ghosts for so much torment, forgotten. And may your loved ones also share in them and gain from them. May you be prosperous in your practice, in your personal lives, in everything, and all that you're endeavoring. May they become true, wholesome, and enrich your life further and further. And the work that I do cannot be done without the support of you. All the support that has been received by this minuscule Sangha of ours here. We accept them on behalf of the Bhikkhu Jam, and may their rewards be shared with all your loved ones, and all the good intentions be multiplied, limitless, bringing you the paths and one. With that, I see you next time.